Lena Solis sat alone at the back of the Grand Hall on Jarok, a dry desert planet ruled by the proud Jari. The hall was wide and bright, its walls made of smooth stone and shimmering crystals that glowed in the heat. She had come here with hope in her heart, but now that hope felt as dry as the dust outside. She watched the Jari leaders sit in a circle. Their golden scales shone under the hall's warm lights. They whispered in their language, clicking and hissing as they decided her fate. Lena could not understand every word, but she did not need to. She could read their eyes. They did not want her here. They did not want her ideas. Lena was a diplomat from Earth. She was smart, strong, and patient. She had left her family and friends behind to travel the stars. Her mission was to make peace, to bring humans and aliens closer, to help small human colonies survive in the big galaxy. But everywhere she went, she was told the same thing. No. An old Jari leader, covered in silver jewelry, stood up and looked at her. His eyes were sharp and cold. "Lena Solis of Earth," he said in broken English, "we thank you for your visit, but we do not need your help. Jarok is strong. We do not need weak humans to tell us how to trade, how to grow food, how to build." Lena stood, her heart beating fast. She held her small data tablet to her chest. She wanted to speak, to argue. She wanted to show them the maps, the plans, the trade routes that could make Jarok richer and safer. She wanted to tell them about the storms coming, the dust that would kill crops if they did not prepare. But she could see in their eyes that they did not care. She took a deep breath. "Thank you for your time," she said. She bowed, just as she had been taught at the academy back on Earth. Then she turned and walked away, her boots echoing on the stone floor. Outside, the hot wind hit her face. She walked down the wide steps of the hall and crossed the dusty square where alien traders sold bright cloth, strange fruits, and small metal tools. No one looked at her. She was just another human, small and unimportant. At the edge of the square, her small ship waited. It was an old model, the Celestia. It had scratches and dents from years of travel through deep space. Its engines hummed softly, like a tired animal ready to sleep. The ship's door opened, and her AI, Orion, greeted her with a calm voice. "Welcome back, Lena." Lena stepped inside and dropped her bag on a seat. She pulled off her scarf and wiped sweat from her forehead. "Thanks, Orion," she said. Her voice was flat, tired. "Meeting did not go well?" Orion asked. Its voice was always soft, polite. It had been her only friend for months. Lena let out a small laugh, but it had no joy in it. "No, it didn't go well. They think we're weak. They think I'm weak." She sat in the pilot's chair and looked at the stars through the wide front window. So many stars, but none felt welcoming tonight. "Lena, you are not weak," Orion said. "You are logical. You are kind. You have good plans." "I know," Lena whispered, "but they don't care. They never do." She thought back to the first planet she had visited, the lush green world of Fariel. The tall, bird-like Farian leaders had smiled at her, but they had laughed at her ideas behind closed doors. Then came Ulmara, home of the strong and silent Ulmar. They had heard her plans, but shut their gates in her face when she asked for support for the struggling human farmers. Planet after planet, leader after leader, polite smiles, soft lies, and then the same cold door. Lena's eyes burned, but she would not cry. She had promised herself she would never cry for them, not for those who could not see her worth. "Should I set course for Earth?" Orion asked. Earth, home. She imagined green fields, blue oceans, her mother's garden, her father's old books, her sister's voice on the comm asking when she would come home for good. But no, not yet. No, Orion, Lena said. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. There must be somewhere else, someone else who will listen. There is a message in our inbox, Orion said after a short pause. A ping from a mining colony at the edge of the frontier, the planet Varkan. Lena opened her eyes. Varkan? That's not in the Alliance network, is it? Correct. It is a human colony, old and mostly forgotten. The message is simple. A man named Marcus Holt wants to talk. Marcus Holt! She repeated the name. She had never heard it before. Maybe he was just another man who would listen politely and then tell her no. Maybe he was just another closed door. But maybe, just maybe, he was different. Lena looked at the map on her tablet. Varkan was far. It was poor, it was rough, but it was human. Maybe they would listen because they knew what it felt like to be small and alone in this big galaxy. Plot. A course, Orion, Lena said. Her voice was stronger now. Set course for Varkan. Yes, Lena, Orion replied. The engines hummed louder as the Celestia prepared for launch. As the ship rose above the desert of Jarok, Lena looked down at the planet that had rejected her. She felt the sting of defeat, but she also felt something warm under her ribs. A small flame that refused to die. Maybe she was an outcast among the stars. But maybe, somewhere out there was one man, or many, who would see her worth. She would find him. She would find them. She would not give up. Not yet. The Celestia moved through the deep black of space like a lonely bird crossing an endless ocean. Inside the small ship, Lena sat at the round table in her tiny common room. A cup of warm tea steamed in front of her, untouched. Her fingers tapped lightly on her tablet as she read the message from Marcus Holt again and again. It was short, just a few lines. Saw your proposal for trade routes and supply support. Varkan might need someone like you. We're small but honest. If you want to talk, come see us. Lena read those words for the 10th time. They did not promise much. They did not praise her ideas or say she was brilliant. But they did not say, no, that small thing kept her from falling apart completely. Orion, Lena said, looking at the ceiling where a small blue light glowed, showing her AI was listening. How far are we from Varkan now? 50 hours at current speed, Orion answered. Would you like to increase thrust? It will burn more fuel. Lena shook her head. No, we need to save every bit of fuel we can. There's no money left to buy more, not until someone trusts me enough to pay. She picked up the tea and took a sip. It was cold now, but she drank it anyway. Waste nothing. That was what her father used to say when he taught her how to fix old farm tools on Earth. Even now, that simple lesson stayed with her in this cold, bright galaxy where nothing came free. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars blinked like tiny eyes watching her. Somewhere out there, millions of aliens lived in shiny cities with tall towers and rich markets. They saw humans, like her as nothing, weak, loud, needy. She knew what they whispered. Humans beg for scraps. They bring trouble. They do not belong here among the stars. And each time they said it, Lena tried to prove them wrong. Each time she failed, the weight in her chest grew heavier. She rested her forehead against the cold window. Why am I doing this, Orion? She asked softly. I could be home by now, safe, working in the capital, a desk job, good food, a warm bed, family. There was a short pause before Orion answered. Because you believe people deserve better. Lena laughed under her breath. Do they? Do they even want better? They slam doors in my face. They call me a dreamer. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a fool. She remembered Fariel, Ulmara, Jarok. She remembered the meetings that ended with polite words and dead eyes. She remembered sitting in empty guest rooms at alien palaces, staring at the same cold ceiling as now. Perhaps Marcus Holt will be different. Orion said. Perhaps, Lena said, but her voice sounded tired. She could not help the small doubt in her heart. Maybe Marcus would reject her too. Maybe he would see her and say, "No, thank you. We don't need help from a woman like you." She pushed away from the window and went to her small bunk. She lay down, boots still on. She closed her eyes, but sleep did not come easy. When she woke, the ship's lights were dimmed to a soft blue. A soft hum of engines was the only sound. Lena sat up and stretched. She felt a little stronger, but the ache in her heart remained. She went to the control room and looked at the navigation screen. A small green dot blinked. Varkan. One tiny planet among countless others. But for her, it was the last chance she was willing to take. She called up old data files about Varkan. The colony had started 50 years ago with a group of engineers and miners from Earth. They found rich metal veins under the rocky surface. For a while, the Alliance bought their metals. But when better planets were found, the traders left. The big companies pulled out. Varkan was left alone. Lena read reports of how the people stayed anyway. They built their own machines from scrap. They made old tools work longer than they should. They traded with passing ships and wandering merchants. It reminded Lena of her father's small farm back home. Make do with what you have. Never give up. She liked that. Maybe that was why Marcus Holt had written to her. Maybe he was tired too, but not of hope. Maybe, like her, he was tired of being ignored. Orion, open the comms. Let's try to reach Marcus, Lena said. A soft beep filled the air. Orion said, "Comm link open, sending signal now." She waited. Seconds turned to minutes. Static crackled in her ear. Then a voice came through, deep, rough, but calm. "This is Holt. Who's on my line?" Lena felt her heart jump. She pushed the talk button. "This is Lena Solis. I'm the one who sent the proposal. I'm on my way to Varkan." A short pause. Then, "Didn't think you'd actually come. Most people promise things and then disappear." "I don't disappear," Lena said firmly. She heard the steel in her own voice. It felt good. A small laugh. "Good. We need people who don't disappear. How far are you?" 50 hours. Maybe a little less." "Copy that. You'll find us waiting. Dock at landing pad 3. It's a bit rough. Don't expect shiny ports like on the core worlds." "I don't care about shiny," Lena said. "I care about people." There was silence again, but this time it felt warm, not cold. "Good answer, Solis. See you soon." The line went dead. Lena sat back and let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere on that small, dusty planet was a man who had not slammed the door in her face. Not yet. Maybe he would, maybe not. But he had given her something precious. A chance. She whispered to herself, "Don't mess this up, Lena." Behind her, Orion said softly, "You won't." Outside the window, a small blue star rose slowly into view. Varkan's sun. For the first time in weeks, Lena let herself smile. A small smile, but real. 50 hours to go. 50 hours to find out if she had been a fool all along, or if maybe, just maybe, this was the place she was meant to be. The Celestia dropped out of hyperspace near the dusty world of Varkan. From the small ship's window, Lena Solis saw the planet below. A rough brown ball with patches of gray mountains and wide plains that looked dry even from orbit. There were no shiny city lights, no big ships flying in and out, just a few blinking signals that told her where people still fought to survive. Approaching Varkan, Orion said softly, "Requesting landing permission." Lena's heart beat faster. She sat in the pilot's chair, her hands tight on the armrests. She had landed on 100 worlds, but this time felt different. She felt like everything in her life came down to this landing. A rough male voice crackled through the comms. Celestia, this is Varkon Control. You're cleared for landing pad 3. Watch the winds. They kick up bad dust storms this time of day. Copy that, Control, Lena said. She pushed the engines gently. The ship rumbled as it entered. Varkan's thin atmosphere. Outside the window, she saw wide, broken plains. Old mining pits looked like scars on the surface. She could see a small cluster of metal buildings. This was the heart of the colony. As she neared the landing pad, Lena saw people waiting. They looked small from above. Humans wearing old work suits, some with helmets, some with goggles, to block the blowing dust. And there, standing at the front, was a tall man in a simple brown coat and black boots. He did not wave. He just stood still, hands on his hips, watching her come down. The ship touched the cracked metal pad with a soft thud. The engines powered down with a tired groan. Lena closed her eyes for a moment, then stood up. "Wish me luck, Orion," she said. "You do not need luck, Lena." "You have your words," the AI answered. She smiled a little at that and pulled on her coat and scarf. She grabbed her small bag, the same one she carried everywhere, filled with data pads, old notebooks, and a few things that reminded her of home. Then she pressed the door button. The ship's ramp opened with a hiss, and warm, dry air rushed in, carrying a mix of dust and metal and something like burned oil. Lena stepped down, boots hitting the pad with a small echo. The tall man in the brown coat walked forward to meet her. Up close, Lena could see he was older than she first thought, maybe in his late 30s or early 40s. His hair was dark and cut short. A bit of stubble covered his jaw. His eyes were sharp but calm, the color of old iron. A small scar ran along his right eyebrow. "Lena Solis?" he asked. His voice was the same as on the comm, deep and a little rough, but clear. "Yes," Lena said, meeting his eyes without flinching. "You must be Marcus Holt." He nodded once. "Welcome to Varkon. Sorry we don't have a fancy welcome hall or a clean port. It's not much, but it's ours." "I'm not here for fancy," Lena said. She glanced at the other people watching. Men and women, young and old, all with the same tired but strong look. "I'm here because you asked for help." Marcus tilted his head a little, studying her. "Some people send offers from safe offices far away. They don't show up. You did." "Maybe I'm too stubborn to stay away," Lena said. She tried to smile, but her heart was pounding. Marcus almost smiled back. Almost. "Good. We like stubborn here. Come on, let's talk inside. Before this wind eats your ship alive." Inside the colony's main hall, it was warmer and smelled of old metal and machine oil. The building was simple. Metal walls, long tables, big maps pinned up on the walls. People moved around, carrying toolboxes, data pads, cups of hot tea. Everyone nodded at Marcus as he passed. He led Lena to a small room with a big table and a few chairs. He pulled out a seat for her, polite but not fake. Lena sat down, putting her bag beside her. Marcus sat across from her and placed a battered old comm tablet on the table. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers linked. He looked at her like a mechanic looks at a broken engine. Curious. Cautious, but ready to work. "So, Solis," he said. "Tell me, what makes you think you can help Varkon?" "Really?" Lena opened her bag and pulled out her data pad. She laid it flat on the table and tapped the screen. A small map appeared. A map of the colony's trade routes, supply lines, mining tunnels. She had pieced it together from old public files and rumors. She turned the screen to face Marcus. "I've studied your colony for months," Lena said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking a little. "You have rich metal veins, but your roads are weak. Your traders cheat you on fuel and parts. You sell good ore for too little and buy food for too much." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You've got all that from public data?" "I read between the lines," Lena said. "You don't have ships big enough to trade with the core planets. The Alliance ignores you because you don't pay taxes to them. So the small-time traders squeeze you dry. Marcus did not say anything for a long moment. Then he leaned back and gave her a slow nod. You're right, but you're not the first to say it. I'm the first to stand here and help fix it, Lena said firmly. I have contacts, small traders who are tired of the big routes, colonies like yours. Together you can make a network. You sell ore direct. You buy food in bulk. You share transport. You get stronger. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. His eyes were tired, but something bright flickered there. Hope, or at least a test to see if hope could live here. And you? He asked. What do you get out of it? We can't pay much. We barely scrape by. Lena held his gaze. I get a place that listens, a chance to prove I'm not wasting my life. For the first time, Marcus's hard face cracked into a small, true smile. Well, Solus, maybe you're stubborn enough for Varkan. He stood up and held out his hand. Lena stood and shook it. His grip was strong, warm, real. Welcome to Varkan, Marcus said. Let's see what you've got. And for the first time in a long time, Lena Solus felt like the door was not closing in her face, but opening. Lena Solus had been on Varkan for 10 days, but already it felt more like home than any shining alien city she had ever seen. Each morning she woke up in a small metal room above the colony's old trade hall. The walls were thin, the floor was cold, but she did not mind. For the first time in years, she woke up feeling needed. On the 11th morning, Lena stepped outside and squinted at the rising sun. The wind blew sharp dust across the metal walkways. She pulled her scarf tighter around her neck and made her way to the water station where people gathered every day to fill rusty cans and buckets. Marcus stood there already, talking with 2 engineers about the broken water pumps. He noticed Lena and gave her a short nod. He did not smile much, but every nod, every small word of trust, felt bigger than any alien leader's false praise. Morning, Solus, Marcus said. He pointed to the pump behind him. We patched this one last night, but the filters are almost gone. Without clean filters, the water turns bad in days. Lena crouched next to the pump. She could see the old metal pipes under the cracked cover. She tapped her data tablet and showed Marcus a list. There's a trader in the rim who sells filters cheap. Old Alliance stock. If we buy in bulk with the other colonies I talked to, the price drops by half. Marcus looked at her tablet, then back at her. Think your people will trust us enough to share the cost? They're not my people yet, Lena said. She stood up and faced him. But they will be. They're like you, left alone by the big powers. They want someone to connect them, someone to remind them they're not alone. Marcus nodded, slowly. And you think you can be that someone? I know I can, Lena said. A young boy ran up then, dirty clothes, big curious eyes. Mr. Holt, the hydro tunnel is leaking again. Marcus let out a breath and looked at Lena. You want to see what you signed up for, Solus? Come on. They followed the boy to the far edge of the colony. The ground here dipped into old mining tunnels that had been turned into makeshift water storage. A few men were already there, standing ankle-deep in muddy water, trying to patch a wide crack in the tunnel wall. Marcus jumped down without waiting. He grabbed a metal sheet and helped press it against the leak. Lena stood at the edge for a moment, then climbed down too. Cold water soaked her boots, but she did not care. Hold it steady, Marcus called. The men pushed, grunted, cursed under their breath. The water slowed but did not stop. Lena watched the trickle, her mind racing. Then she said, Stop pushing for a second. They all looked at her like she was mad, but Marcus barked, Do what she says. The men let go. Lena stepped forward, knee-deep in the muddy water now. She ran her hand over the crack. You're pressing the wrong spot, she said. She pointed at a tiny split at the edge. The leak starts here. If you don't seal this first, it will break through again. Marcus stared at her, then looked at the crack. He gave a short laugh, more like a grunt of surprise. "Well, I'll be damned. She's right. Bring me the patch foam." They sprayed thick gray foam into the tiny split first. Then they pressed the metal sheet over the main. Crack! This time the water stopped for good. When they climbed out, wet and covered in mud, Marcus looked at Lena with new eyes. "You ever fix mining tunnels before, Solus?" "No," Lena said, breathless but smiling. "But back home I fixed broken. Farm pipes for my father. Water is water." Marcus laughed, a real laugh this time. The men nearby smiled too, nodding at her with respect. She was not just some visitor anymore. She was one of them. That night, Lena sat at the long table in the trade hall, looking at maps with Marcus and two other colony leaders, Mira, the head of food storage, and Jonah, who ran the old comms tower. They talked for hours about new supply routes, fair prices, and how to build trust with other small colonies. Lena showed them her plan for a shared transport hub, a place where ships could dock, trade, refuel, and move on without paying. Huge fees to the big stations. Marcus leaned over her shoulder, studying the plan. His breath smelled of strong black tea, his coat still dusty from the tunnels. "This is good, Solus," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "Better than good. You're making them believe again." Lena looked at him, her eyes tired but shining. "Not just believe in me. Believe in themselves." Marcus's eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, there was a warmth there that made her chest feel light. But then he looked away and said in his rough voice, "Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow we dig out that old supply tunnel you found on the map." Late that night, Lena lay on her narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling. The metal walls around her creaked in the cold night wind. Somewhere outside, machines hummed and people worked, even after dark. She thought about Fariel, Ulmara, Jarok, all the planets that had told her no. She thought about how, in just days, this rough, tired place had given her more than all those grand halls and fancy leaders. They had given her trust. They had let her help. They had let her belong. Her tablet blinked with a new message. A trader from another rim colony saying he was ready to join her network if Varkon stayed in. She smiled in the dim light. Slowly, piece by piece, her plan was working. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "I knew I wasn't wasting my life." And for the first time in a long time, Lena Solus slept without dreaming of doors closing. The days on Varkon grew longer and busier for Lena Solus. She woke before sunrise and worked until the stars filled the dark sky again. She did not feel tired. Every plan she made, every meeting she led, gave her more energy than any rest ever had. Word spread fast. Small traders who had once cheated Varkon now came back, curious about Lena's new trade hub idea. She set fair prices. She showed them simple maps to safer routes through pirate space. For once, people listened. One morning, as Lena and Marcus walked through the busy market square, a small group of miners stopped them. They were rough men, their faces lined from years of dust and sun. One of them, an older man named Corin, stepped forward. "Miss Solus," Corin said, his voice respectful, but worried. "We heard the council on Jarok is angry about your deals. They say you're trying to break the big traders' hold. They say they'll cut us off." Lena stood straight. The sun was hot on her neck, but she did not flinch. "Let them try," she said calmly. "We don't need the big traders if we stand together." Marcus crossed his arms, standing beside her like a silent wall. "You trust her?" Corin asked him. Marcus did not hesitate. He looked at Corin and then at the other miners. "She came here when no one else did. She works harder than any of us. She knows what she's doing. I trust her with my life, so you can trust her too." The miners nodded. They did not cheer. They did not clap. But in that quiet moment, Lena felt their fear turn to belief. That was enough for her. Later that night, in the old trade hall, Lena sat with Marcus, Mira, and Jonah again. They gathered around a big table covered in dusty papers, digital maps, and half-empty cups of tea. Mira spoke first, her voice low but sharp. "The Xerox Council sent a message today. They call us rebels. They say they'll punish us if we don't drop Lena's trade network." Jonah slammed his hand on the table. "Punish us? We've been ignored for decades. Now we make something better for ourselves and they threaten us?" Marcus stayed quiet, watching Lena as she tapped her fingers on her tablet. She looked calm, but he could see the fire behind her eyes. "They think we'll bend because we're small," Lena said. Her voice was steady. "They think we'll break because we always have before. But we won't. Not this time." Jonah leaned forward. "What if they block our supplies? What if they send patrol ships?" Lena showed them. A new map. Small green dots marked colonies like Varkun. Old mining outposts, farm planets, fuel stations. They were spread out but connected by thin lines. "I've spoken to leaders on 5 other colonies," Lena said. "They feel the same. They're tired of paying high fees to alien councils who give nothing back. If Xerox tries to squeeze us, we trade among ourselves instead. Or for food, fuel for crops, skills for parts. Together we have what we need." Mira's eyes shone with quiet hope. "Will they stand with us when trouble comes?" "They will," Lena said. "Because they have no other choice. And because they trust us. Trust you." She looked at Marcus. His steady eyes told her what she needed to know. He believed in her plan more than ever. The next day, the trouble came. A big trading vessel arrived at Varkon's orbit. It sent a cold message. "Stop your new network or we cut off fuel. Shipments." Marcus called Lena to the main comms room. They stood side by side, facing the old screen where the trader captain appeared. A thin alien with pale scales and a sharp smile. "You have made enough noise, humans," the alien captain sneered. "Stop now. Return to the old deals or you will starve here in your dust." Lena stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "No, we won't stop. We don't need you anymore. Go ahead. Leave. We'll build our own routes." The captain hissed, his scales flicking. "You are weak alone." "But we're not alone," Lena said. She pressed a button. On the screen, new faces appeared. Leaders from other colonies, old friends Lena had spoken to in secret. Miners, farmers, engineers. They all nodded, silent but firm. The alien's smile vanished. He cut the signal. His big ship turned and vanished into the stars. In the comms room, silence fell. Then Marcus laughed, loud and real. He slapped his hand on the old console. "You did it, Solus." "We did it," Lena said. She felt her knees shake, but she did not sit down. She felt taller than ever before. Days passed. The rebellion of the rejected spread fast. Small colonies linked up through Lena's simple network. Fuel arrived from hidden supply stations. Food moved from rich soil planets to mining outposts that had only dry ground. Engineers traded repair work for fresh vegetables. No big council took a cut. For the first time, people who had always been called weak and useless stood strong together. One night, after a long day of planning and talking and fixing broken ships, Lena sat with Marcus outside the old trade hall. The night wind was cool on their faces. Above them, the stars were sharp and clear. Marcus passed her a small metal cup of black tea. He looked tired but proud. "You know, Solus," he said, "I don't think you ever belonged in those big shiny halls. You belong here, with people who don't have time for pretty lies." Lena took a sip of the strong tea. "Maybe you're right," she said with a small smile. She looked at him, really looked. the man who had not laughed at her plans, the man who had stood beside her when the galaxy said no. "You saw me when no one else did," she said quietly. "I won't forget that." Marcus's eyes were warm in the starlight. He leaned back, his hands folded behind his head. "You showed us who we could be. I won't forget that either." They sat together under the wide stars, saying nothing more. The wind carried the sound of machines, laughter, work, signs of life, signs of hope. Lena knew there would be more fights ahead. More people would try to shut her down. But she was not alone anymore. She had found people who saw her worth, and she had helped them see their own. For the first time in her life, Lena Solis felt ready for whatever came next. A month passed since the big traders pulled their ships away from Varkan. Lena Solis watched the days pass like pages in a book she never wanted to close. She had no fancy title, no office with tall windows. Her desk was an old metal table in the corner of the trade hall, covered with maps, data pads, and half-full mugs of cold tea. But to her, it was worth more than any golden office in the Alliance. Each day brought new messages. A farm colony on the edge of the rim sent crates of fresh vegetables for the miners. In return, Varkan's engineers fixed broken water pumps and old power cells. Traders who once flew empty ships through dead trade routes now carried ore, tools, grain, and fuel from one struggling world to another. The network Lena dreamed of, the one she had been laughed at for, was now real. Small, but alive. One clear morning, Lena stood on a tall metal platform near the new landing pad. She watched a battered cargo ship lift off, engines roaring as dust blew across the wide plain. Children stood near her, cheering and waving at the ship that carried food and news to another lonely place far away. Marcus stood beside her. He had taken off his heavy coat in the soft morning sun. His rough hands were crossed behind his back. He looked at the ship, then at Lena. "Still think you're wasting your life?" he asked, a small grin touching the corner of his mouth. Lena laughed softly. It felt good in her chest, warm, light. "Not anymore." She turned to him. The dust wind tugged at her hair. "Do you know why I came here, Marcus?" He looked down at her, eyes steady. "Tell me." "I was tired of being told no. I was tired of seeing doors close in my face. I needed someone, anyone, to say yes, or at least maybe." "You did that?" Marcus shrugged, but his eyes said more than his rough voice ever could. "You were worth saying yes to." A quiet moment passed between them. In that small space, Lena felt the weight of every rejection she had faced. And she felt it lift. That same day, Lena sat at her corner desk, reading a new message on her old tablet. It was from the Council of Jarok, the same council that had called her weak, the same one that once turned her away without listening. Now they wanted a meeting. Marcus walked over, drying oil from his hands with an old cloth. "Bad news?" he asked. Lena turned the tablet so he could see. "They want peace talks. They want in." Marcus laughed, a short, deep sound. "Of course they do. You made something they can't control. Now they want a peace." "They're scared," Lena said. She pushed the tablet aside. "They thought we'd break without them. Now they see we don't need them. They want to be our partners, not our rulers." Marcus sat down across from her. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "So what will you tell them?" Lena thought about it. She thought about all the times she had stood in grand alien halls, holding her small tablet, hoping for a single nod of trust. She thought about how she had begged powerful leaders to help people like the ones sitting right outside this dusty old hall. She looked at Marcus and smiled, small but sharp. "I'll tell them they can join, but on our terms. Fair deals. Fair trade. No more taking everything and giving nothing back. Marcus's smile matched hers. Good. Make them listen for once. 3 days later, the Council of Jarak sent 2 small ships to Varkan. Lena watched them land from the same platform where she had stood with Marcus before. This time, the people of Varkan stood behind her. Miners, farmers, traders, children, old engineers. They were not an army. They had no weapons in their hands, but they were strong all the same. The Jari leaders stepped out of their ships in shiny robes and golden chains. They looked around, eyes narrowing at the rough buildings, the patched roads, the simple landing pads. They probably expected fear. They did not find it. Lena stepped forward to greet them. She wore no suit, no special badge, just her old coat and the scarf she always wrapped around her neck when the wind turned cold. One of the Jari leaders, the same old alien who once called her weak, nodded stiffly. "Lena Solis, we come in peace." Lena nodded back. "Good. Let's talk." They met inside the trade hall, the same hall where miners and farmers shared tea and simple meals, the same hall where Lena's dreams had grown from whispers to something real. The Jari asked for special rights, lower taxes, first pick of the best ore. They wanted Varkan and the other small colonies to give up control once trade was stable again. Lena listened. She nodded politely, as they once did when they dismissed her. When they finished, she spoke in her calm, steady voice. "No special rights, no first pick. We trade fair, we share profits, we decide together, or you can leave." The Jari looked at each other, shocked. They were not used to a human, a young woman from a small blue planet, telling them no. Marcus stood beside her, arms crossed. His silent presence said everything. We stand with her. In the end, the Jari agreed. They signed her new agreement. Fair trade, shared risk, shared reward. And for the first time, Lena did not feel like the beggar at their gates. She was the gatekeeper now. That night, the trade hall turned into a place of quiet celebration. There was no loud music, no grand speeches, just people sharing warm food, laughing, telling stories about where they had come from and where they would go next. Lena sat by the window, a warm cup of tea in her hands. She watched the stars through the glass, the same stars she once crossed. Alone, hoping someone would see her worth, Marcus joined her. He handed her a small metal badge, simple, handmade. On it, someone had carved a small symbol of 3 linked rings: Varkan, the Rim colonies, and Earth, connected. "You built this," Marcus said. "Wear it when you go talk to more worlds." Lena took the badge and ran her thumb over the rough edges. She looked at Marcus. "You know, every man in power out there rejected me." He met her eyes, warm under the dim lights. "Not every man." Lena laughed softly, her heart light. She pinned the badge to her coat. It was not gold, it was not shiny, but it was real, just like her worth. And in that small, dusty trade hall, Lena Solis knew one truth deep in her bones. She had never needed the doors those old rulers closed. She only needed to find the ones ready to open new ones beside her.